Tatlong tulog na lang at election day na. Ano nga ba ang final pitch ni President Ferdinand Marcos and his alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas late in the 2025 elections? Hi, my name is Bea Cupin. I am in the historic 9 de Febrero Street in Mandaluyong City, where a few moments ago, Marcos and his alyansa slate held their meeting the avance or their final campaign rally in the 2025 national campaign period. First, bakit nga ba sa Mandaluyong? Well, una sa lahat, baluarte ito ni Benhur Abalos, one of the candidates of the alyansa, who just happens to be among the few candidates of the slate na medyo naghihirap or tagilid based on preference surveys ahead of the 2025 elections. If you recall, 90 days ago rather, the alyansa kicked off their campaign in another bailiwick of a member of their state, no less than the bailiwick of President Ferdinand Marcos, na kick off, of course, yung alyansa sa Lawag, Ilocos Norte. Ngayon, ang dami nang nangyari since yung kick off na yon. To begin with, sa Lawag, 12 yung kandidato ni President Marcos who stood behind him when he spoke for the first time on the campaign stage. Kanina, 10 na lamang yung kandidatong naka-flank sa kanya, kumbaga, on the campaign stage. Bakit nga ba 10 na lang? Before we talk about that, let's roll through who did join the president here in Mandaluyong. Of course, re-election is Senator Pia Cayetano was there, former Senator Ping Lacson, former Senator Manny Pacquiao, former Senator and Senate President actually Tito Soto, Makati Mayor Abby Binay, former Interior Secretary and former Mayor of Mandaluyong Benhur Abalos was here. Re-election is Senator Francis Tolentino, former Senate President, again Tito Soto was here. Survey frontrunner Erwin Tulfo and AXIS representative was also here. Re-election is Senator Lito Lapid was also on stage alongside President Marcos. If you notice, 10 na lang yon, kulang ng dalawa. Ano nga ba nangyari sa dalawang kandidato? Well, one of them is Camille Villar, Deputy House Speaker and Las Piñas representative. She is still part of the Alyansa slate. However, she hasn't been joining Alyansa sorties since she got the endorsement of Vice President Sara Duterte, who once upon a time was a close ally of President Marcos, now no longer. Isa yan sa mga maraming nangyari since the campaign or since at least 2022. Nung kick-off ng campaign, meron na din nangyari at meron pang isa pang nangyari to further widen the chasm between the Duterte and the Marcos allyship. Another candidate who has since dropped out of the Alyansa state, or the only candidate who has since dropped out of the Alyansa state, of course, is re-election Senator Amy Marcos, the sister of the president who left Alyansa in protest of the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte, who is now in The Hague, awaiting or about to face charges for crimes against humanity related to his bloody drug war before the International Criminal Court. So aside from that, yun yung mga nangyari na nga since the campaign kicked off on February 11. Now, subsequently or after nga yung arrest ni President Duterte or former President Duterte and his transfer to The Hague, Marcos has seen his numbers plummet quite dramatically depending on the survey that you look. Sa ibang survey naman, medyo minuscule or marginal lang yung drop ng popularity, trust and popularity ni President Marcos. But nonetheless, that is something that would concern you at the midway point of the campaign. Yung overlying message daw kanina ng mga kandidato at least was Thanksgiving. Nagpasalamat sila sa campaign staff, sa production staff, supporters across the country, allies, governors, mayors, legislators who campaigned with them or hosted them in different sorties across the country. Of course, napasalamat din sila kay Navotas Representative and Campaign Manager Toby Chanco. They also said thank you to House Speaker Romualdez, who interestingly enough was not directly involved in the Alyansa campaign, but nonetheless met with the members of Lakas CMD, the dominant ruling party or the dominant party in the 2025 elections, to mobilize them and ensure that they vote straight for Alyansa. Of course, isa sa mga pinasalamatan ay si President Marcos, who has been joining the Alyansa slate in almost all of their major sorties together as a slate, except for one sortie kasi nasa Vatican siya nun to attend the funeral of Pope Francis. But, however, habang yung tone ng speech ng kanyang candidates ay pasasalamat, yung kay Marcos naman, napansin natin na na-revive niya yung dalawa sa parang pinaka-striking or key promises that he made when he ran for president in 2022. Among them, yung promise or yung pitch of a unified Philippines. Unity, kumbaga, di ba? Yun yung isa sa mga core promises niya, for better or worse, in the 2022 elections, back when he was still allies with Vice President Sara Duterte. Isa pang one of his main promises or parang up top sa speech niya kanina ay ni-reiterate niya yung pangako niya ng 20 pesos per kilo na bigas. Ngayon, nag-roll out na ito, parang pilot program sa vote-rich province of Cebu. And he said during his speech earlier na it will roll out in the rest of the country as soon as the election period is over. Kasi may restrictions yon, kaya hindi pwedeng basta-basta lang i-roll out yung programang ito sa rest of the country. Now, if you think about it though, yung tanong dito, di ba, kung yung mga pangako ba ni President Marcos or yung pitch ni President Marcos of a bagong Pilipinas, of continuity, obviously, supporting his programs, is it enough to win a 2025 midterm election? We have to understand also na to begin with, yung mga kandidato niya sa alyansa are quite popular. They are veterans in Philippine politics. Marami sa kanila ay former senators, re-electionists, legislators, chief executives. Some of them are members of this cabinet. Now, hindi lang naman ito, although yung pitch ni President Marcos ay kumbaga experience sila, but in the context of Philippine politics, they are familiar names. It's very useful if you're running a national campaign. So majority of the alyansas candidates are actually right in the, or like safely in the middle of the magic 12, or yung statistically probable to win in the 2025 elections. Again, yung mga kandidato lang na either hindi nakakapasok or medyo tagilid or medyo malayo pa sa Magic 12 ay candidates including Benhur Abalos, again the former mayor of Mandaluyong. Re-election ni Senator Francis Tolentino has also been close to the Magic 12 but not quite. And in some surveys, kahit si former Senator Manny Pacquiao ay medyo nahihirapan or medyo hindi safe yung ranking niya based on preference surveys. Now, you think about it, yung midterm election ay sinasabi nilang referendum of a midterm, of a president at his midterm. Now, totoo naman ito, but if you think about it also, isa pang, what you also have to think about in the context of 2025 is that while the Allianza slate, majority of them are poised to win seats in the Senate, two key Duterte aides, including the two key Duterte aides, specifically re-electionist Senators Bongo and Bato de la Rosa, have seen their numbers rise quite dramatically since the campaign kickoff, especially after Duterte's arrest. Yung ibang mga kandidato ng Duterte slate, hindi pasok sa Magic 12 or medyo malapit yung iba, pero napansin din natin based on surveys, medyo tumataas din yung preference nila among voters. Vice President Sara Duterte, meanwhile, has found an ally or a stronger ally in Senator Marcos, again the sister of President Marcos. She released an ad, in fact, today attacking the administration, saying na hindi daw Marcos run ito, kundi run by the allies of her brother. So, ang tanong dito ay after the fireworks, after the confetti, after votes are cast and tallied, will the administration achieve what they want politically, which is to ensure na Senate, the Congress, the Senate specifically, is controlled by their allies. Another thing that you have to remember, after this election, yung sunod na itatakal ng Senate ay yung impeachment trial ni Vice President Sara Duterte. The Marcos administration will need numbers to deliver a conviction should they want that to happen. Well, yung nag-impeach naman sa kanya in the first place are kanyang mga allies sa Congress or sa House of Representatives. More importantly though, beyond the politics, the feuding of the Marcos and Duterte clan, will a win for the Marcos administration in the midterm or a majority win for the Alyansa in the midterms also translate to a bagong Pilipinas in a country where a majority of Filipinos think the government is not doing enough to address economic issues like inflation, job creation, tsaka yung economic issues nga na usually naman yun yung recurring na concerns ng mga Pilipino. We find out in 3 days. May 12 is election day, that's a Monday. And I invite you to follow our coverage, not just on election day itself, but on May 10, that's tomorrow, as the campaign finally wraps up. It's the last day for national and local candidates to campaign on Saturday, May 10. We'll give you updates from the ground, from across the Philippines, really. You can also download the Rappler app. I'm there, my colleagues are there, other reporters are there. You can get updates from the Rappler app. Go to the Politics and Governance channel. You'll see PH Vote or Philippine election updates there. Until then, this has been Bea Cupin, speaking to you from Mandaluyong. I'll see you online and I'll see you on May 12 in Lawag, Ilocos Norte. Thank you for watching.